For those of you who have watched my channel for a while, last year we raked up all the tomato beds. Had a lot of little tomatoes in them, millions of seeds. So I took a piece of fence and made a circle, stuck it in the ground. If you cut off the bottom section, you got points, and that way you can stick it in the ground and the circle will stand up and it's strong. Well, I just unhooked the wire where it made the circle and this fell apart. This is our whole compost pile. You can see the piles out there I'm covering the beds with. And look at the grubs in this thing. They are some heavy duty grubs. But look at that soil. Man, that is beautiful. Now we'll put this in the garden, and I'm not a believer in manure tea. I'm a believer in manure tea. I'm not a believer in compost tea because compost has almost no nitrogen, phosphorus, NPK. But as it rains, all that rainwater goes through that compost, and it does pick up some of the minerals and trace minerals and all that's in the compost. And I'll just run around this in a circle, and as big as that is, I could almost just back a wheelbarrow up to it and pull it over into it. But we're trying to redo this and get a compost pile working again. That right there is a pile of weeds that I got up with a stirrup pole and just let them sit in the sun and they'll dry out. And now what we do is take a rake or a foot or whatever and drag all this up near the plants, keep the weeds down. It also holds the moisture to the soil so you don't have to water as much. And if you have a drought, you don't have to water as much. And if you're away from home and you're worried about your stuff drying out and dying, with all this surrounded it, that soil never dries out. That's why we put it down. And we just come down through here with a rake, pull it back and forth. And I really need a little bit more in here to pull up next to those cucumbers. Plus it keeps the weeds down. And if the weeds are taking the nutrients out of the soil, your plants don't grow and produce like you want them to. I got tired looking at those little bit of weeds and I dragged them all out here to the corner. And then after a while I'll drag them around again, just knock soil off of them. And then the sun will kill the roots. Yesterday I did a video on my onions, and I did a video about a week ago saying they were very erect and not falling over yet. Well, people who've grown onions know what I'm getting ready to say. Yesterday there were none falling over, they were standing up. And you can see one's over at the end, one's there, they're several leaning. There's one there that has fallen over on its own. And see, this is fallen over on its own. Whoops. It's trying to tell you that it's almost time to pick them. And the rule of thumb is when half of them fall over, pull them all. The other little secret is, to see how that's 90 degrees, you might as well pull it because that is not putting anything else back into that onion. See, that's 90 degrees. That still could do a little something. But you can see there's 10 or 12 of them over, and there's a couple hundred here. So, almost time. We were driving around the community tonight and it looked so gorgeous across the water. I went back and got my camera so y'all could enjoy the view here. There's a heron flying through. There's a fishhawk on their nest on that post on the right. Water's laid down. A gorgeous view. Well, it's 7 p.m. on Thursday the 23rd of June on the East Coast, and we're going to transfer these irises over here, and they like organic matter. They don't really need really super rich full soil or soil that's real fertilized, but they need organic matter. So that's the last of our compost pile that we put in here that I'm going to turn in. The onions have had, there's 6 or 7, 8. You can see where they've fallen over. So those are starting to show that it's almost time to pick them and pull them. And when half of them fall over, it's time to pull them. Here's the smaller onions. Here are lima beans. Earlier on the video I said we're hoping for lima beans that'll grow on this fence, because the last 2 years we bought some that were climbers like pole beans and they didn't do it. Our peppers are looking pretty healthy. We got a whole row of them. The okra, you can now at least see them. The cucumbers are getting second leaves. The tomatoes have grown at least a foot or more, and they're dark and nice green, healthy. And we made this extra compost in here and pulled it up to those. I don't have enough to do that. We've done this bed with some out of the bottom of the compost pile. Is really rich, but it's not like leaves compost. It hadn't fully composted down. And then over here we pulled this compost to the plants, and then we've composted all of this, except this is the bottom of the pile, so it's more like soil, and you could get weeds to grow in soil a lot more than thicker uncomposted leaf matter. And since we've been down here for about 10-12 days, we built this for these grapevines. That was where my round compost pile was, down here on the end. And we took that down. We took down the fence for this compost pile. We took all this out. There's still some wiregrass in there that I need to get out. There was a bunch of wiregrass, and we hand dug it out. And if this will dry out a little bit, I can run the lawnmower through here with the deck at a low position with my foot on top of it, and it'll lift some of this up, and then I can get maybe another row and a half to put on their garden. Here's our apple tree. It's getting dark here on the East Coast, and they're getting some nice size to them. That's all the weeds I pulled out of this bed. This is what I use for the compost pile. We put this wire up the other day, and it has already reached it. It was down here, I don't know, maybe just all the wires started growing madly, but it was unbelievable that in one day it had attached itself to the wire. And here are some onions that I pulled today that are gone to seed, and 3 leeks. And once I put my compost in, I will take those leeks and put in there, and we'll use these onions.